Thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. Today I'm going to talk to you about creating a nexus, the link between your diagnosed condition and your time in service. If you don't have a diagnosis during your time in service, listen to this. I will show you ways that you can create that. Before we jump into it, please hit the like button for me, share it, subscribe. I'm going to continue to kick out information that will help you with your VA claims. So I'm going to use GERD as an example. I actually had someone reach out and ask about GERD and getting diagnosed after service. Now, that poses a problem in a lot of cases when you get diagnosed out of service. What you are looking for a successful claim is three things. One, active duty time. We'll just use that as the active duty member. So active duty time. The second is a diagnosed condition. The third is the link between the two, the nexus. So it's not that the military caused it, it's just that it manifested during your time in service. So the easiest way is to get diagnosed while you're still in. So that's the easiest way, and that's what you really aim for. But a lot of times we get out of the military, we never get diagnosed in, and then we get diagnosed after the fact. Now, a little known secret here is, and I'm going to do a whole other video on this because it drives me nuts. Nobody tells anybody anything, and it's horrendous. So there's something called presumptives, and basically what the VA does is they basically acknowledge that the condition has manifested during service, even if you got diagnosed later. So one of these presumptives that are there for us is a year time frame from the time you get out. So you get out at, we'll just say January 1, you have until December 31st to get diagnosed with anything, and the VA will go ahead and use that as a presumptive and say, you know what, it's likely that it has come from your time in service, so we'll go ahead and connect you for that. So in this case, using GERD, again, gastroesophageal reflux disease, it's bad heartburn, using that as our example here, you could have gotten out of the military, didn't document anything while you were in, get diagnosed 6 months later from a civilian provider, and with that 6 month from your discharge date, that should get us a presumptive, and you should be able to win your claim with that alone. Now, that's one option. Another option is you may have, during one of your your exit physical assessment, when you get ready to get out of the military, a lot of times, you should anyway, go through that physical health assessment where you are marking down, there's a form in there where you're going to mark down yes, no, or not applicable for whatever, 60 different types of things, conditions. And it'll ask you things like, have you now or have you ever experienced migraine headaches, heartburn, painful swollen joints, so on and so on. The list goes forever. And you're clicking yeses and no. Now, when you joined the military, you said no to everything. So that created the clean slate. Now you're getting out. You may have been a little more honest and hit some of those yes boxes. Now, that form is signed by maybe an 03, 04, 05 physician's assistant or medical provider. So it is a piece of medical evidence. And that evidence can be used as the nexus. This condition first manifested during my time in service. I complained about it here, and it was signed by a doctor, and you can use that as your leverage. So that's the second way that you can create that nexus if you were not diagnosed during service. The third way is, let's say you have nothing on any sort of exit paperwork, so you didn't mention it anywhere, and you got diagnosed, 3 years after you got out. So now you're not in that presumptive window. So now what happens is you need to build back. Now, hopefully, when you got diagnosed, the doctor asked you, so how long have you been experiencing these symptoms? And you replied, somewhere within your time frame of service. Hopefully that got documented, and if not, no big deal. You can always go back to your doctor and let your doctor know, hey, this is what I like to say, this is important, so or at least I feel it's important. It might not be that important, but I like it. When I talk to a civilian doctor about anything to do with me going forward for a VA claim. I don't want my civilian doctor to think, oh, he's just going to get care from the VA and I'm never going to see him again. I'm going to lose money, lose a client, lose a patient, whatever. So the way I frame it is, hey, doc, I am putting together a package to send to the VA so they can reimburse me for my medical expenses, which is basically true. It's VA compensation for your disabilities. What you do with it is on you. You don't have to go to the VA. You can go wherever you want, and it's supposed to compensate you. But it kind of frames it in a better light for your civilian provider to be more, helpful through the process. So you want to make sure that your dates are in your medical notes with your provider. You can also ask your medical provider to provide what we call a nexus letter. So you basically would have them write a letter. Now the threshold in the VA is pretty low. It's at least as likely as not to have occurred during your time in service. So if evidence is, we'll say in equipoise, if it's equal on each side for you and against you, the VA is supposed to rule in your favor. So a phrase as simple as Jane or Joe veteran condition is at least likely as not to have occurred during his or her time in service should suffice. I personally still like to go a little bit further and ask my doctor to actually say it is more than likely, just to be extra super safe, but either way is fine. So having them write a nexus letter, there's a lot of examples online, and if I can find some, I'll throw some in the description below here. So you want to do that. So that helps to build the evidence for your nexus. The second thing of that third component option here, right, is you want to follow that up with what we call buddy statements. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a buddy. It can be your spouse. It could be an adult child maybe that knew you, friends, co-workers, what have you, that were with you during your time in service. So if you were married, that's pretty easy if you were married during your time in service. If you weren't married and you were living in, say, the barracks with 2 or 3 other people, and they knew that you had severe GERD and you were constantly eating Tums and drinking milk or Melanta or whatever, and you just always had heartburn, they could write a letter stating that, and that they had actually witnessed you have GERD attacks or bad heartburn attacks, and that will help to build the evidence. Again, everything is evidence-based, and really this type of evidence is considered lay evidence, and the VA is never exactly right. They may deny your claim up front. That's fine. Go through appeal, might get overturned there, and if not, then you push it to the Board of Appeals and have it seen by a veterans law judge who looks at things very legally, and they will utilize that evidence as such and hopefully grant you the claim because you have this evidence supporting that your condition is manifested during your time in service. The one thing I'll add to that is a letter from yourself. That letter from yourself would essentially indicate that you had bought over-the-counter stuff. Your medic or your corpsman would give you basically over-the-counter antacids, and they don't document any of that. So same thing with Motrin, right? They just hand it out. They don't document, I gave 15 Tums or antacids to this service member. They don't document it. So you attesting to it, you getting diagnosed for it, you getting the nexus letter from the doctor and buddy statements from spouse, adult children, or children that were old enough at the time, co-workers in the military and so forth, will help you to solidify that claim. So with that, I'll go ahead and close it out. And hey, remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong. Hope you have a great one.